There are many different sections of code blocks in Scratch, but the section I'm going to be going over today is called the motion section. So the first block that I'm going to be talking about is called the move 10 steps block. Now this block basically just moves whatever direction that your character is pointing. So right now this cat is pointing 90, which is to the right, and if we were to click on this and make this happen, it goes to the right. Now if we change the direction to say -105 and then set it and then move 10 steps, it's going to move that way. It just moves whatever direction that you're pointing. I'll explain direction in a sec. Now the next two blocks are direction blocks. So if we pull these out, this one on the top here is turn 15 degrees clockwise, so it'll turn to the right. This one right here is turn 15 degrees counterclockwise. So if we click this, as you can see, our little cat is rotating around. Then if we click the other one, it will rotate the other way. Now this is when the steps comes in, because right now we're pointing this way, so if we do move 2 steps, it's going to move that way. And if we turn, say, to making it face up, like that, and then move 10 steps, it'll move that way. So the fourth block is called the go-to block. Now you can either set it to go to random position, the mouse pointer, or any other sprite. So right now if we click this, it'll just go to, the cat will go to random position on the screen, as you can see in action. The next one is mouse pointer. So if we were to put this in a forever loop, which I will be covering later, and click the green flag, it goes to your mouse pointer, which is just your mouse. And then the final option you can choose is the specific sprites. So say this cat was over here, and you did go to gray cat, which is this other sprite right here, and you clicked it, it'll go to it, no matter where it is. So if we move the gray cat all the way over here, and then click go to gray cat, it will go to it, no matter what. And it may not look like it went to it, because it's behind it. So that is the go-to block. The next block is another go-to block, except this one you can set specific X, Y coordinates for your character to go to. So on this background right here, you can see all the different X and Y. So X is right and left, and Y is up and down. So positive Y would be up, and negative Y would be down, and a positive X would be right, and the negative X would be left. So right here on this chart, it would be -100 for the Y and -100 for the X. So if we move this back to the middle and do go to -100 and push tab to go to the next one, -100, and click it, it'll go right where we set it. And this does not have to be like a perfect number. You can do -96 and -85 and then click it, and you can do whatever numbers you want in here. So that is the go-to block. So the next two blocks are called glide blocks. So this one right here is kind of like this go-to block, except that it automatically glides, and you can set the time it takes to glide to that position. So the same, you can do random, the mouse pointer, or the specific sprite. So if I set this to sprite 2, the cat, as you can see, glides to wherever it is, all the way over to the gray cat, and it makes it take 1 second. And you can change this value and make it take 5 seconds, so that will make it go much slower. So now if we click it, as you can see, it's very slow. Or if we do 0.1 and then we move the cat and then click it again, it goes very fast. So that is the glide seconds to specific value. And this one right here, the glide 1 seconds to X and Y, you can set the specific X, Y coordinates just as this one. So like before, if I wanted to go to X 100 and Y -100, so right here, I could go X 100, Y -100. Then I can also set this one, so I want it to go 0.5, so it's faster. Then I click that, and it'll glide to right there. So the next motion block is called the point and direction block. Now this one you can set a specific value for it to point. So right now it's 90. 90 is to the right. As you can see, it's pointing to the right, and you can drag this arrow to whatever direction. Negative 90 is to the left. And the reason this is upside down is because of the rotation style, which I will explain in a minute. So if I wanted this to point up, I would do 0, and you can do anywhere in between too. So if I want it to point to the right but kind of up like that, I would do 60, and then you can just play around. You can also type values in here if you don't want to turn the turn wheel. So like 85 or 86, like that. So that is the point and direction one. So the block after the point and direction is called the point towards. Now this is similar to the go to and the glide 1 seconds to block, except it's not, you can't do random position. So this one you can either do point towards mouse pointer. So then once again, if I put that in a forever loop and play the project, it will just point to my mouse. So you can see it will just look at my mouse pointer. And then if we do point towards, we can also do point towards a specific sprite. So sprite 2, which is the gray cat, and we click that, it'll point towards. So we can click up here and it will look towards it if we click on it. So that's the point towards one. So the next couple motion blocks are very important. The first one here is the change X by. So instead of setting it to a specific value, you just change it. So it just adds on. So if we click it, it will move to the right. Now this one's a little bit different from the move 10 steps. This one moves in whatever direction it's looking. But if we make it look the opposite way and we do change X by 10, it will still move to the right. And like I said before, a positive X number will move to the right and a negative will move to the left. So as you can see here, 10 will make it to the right, and if we do say negative 10 here and click it, it'll move to the left. So the block under the change X by block is called the set X2. This block is pretty much the same as its go-to, except instead of having to set both the X and Y, you can just set the X. So if you wanted to Y to just stay whatever I set it here by dragging it, but you wanted the X to always be 0, you can just do set X to 0 and then you can just set the Y to whatever you want. So 234, and then move it over here and it will set the X back to 0. So these bottom two blocks right here are the exact same as the change X and the set X2, except they're for the Y. So you can do change Y by 10 and it'll move it up, and change Y by a negative number like negative 10 and it'll move it down. And then same with the set. You can just set the Y and not worry about the X. So the if on edge bounce block will basically do what it sounds like. If it touches the edge, it will bounce and point in the opposite direction. So if I were to put this in a forever loop and then move 10 steps so it moves in whatever direction it's facing, and then do like 3 and then run the project, as you can see it moves, and then when it hits the edge it will bounce off and go the other way. So this is kind of a shortcut. Instead of having to go through a bunch of coding and doing if statements and sensing and all that, it will just automatically detect it for you. Okay, so now we're on to the set rotation style block. Now this block is the reason why earlier when I point in the direction negative 90, which is to the left, it turns upside down. That is because the rotation style is all around. Now the rotation style, when it's all around, it'll just point in whatever direction. Doesn't matter if it's upside down, it'll just point in whatever direction you tell it to. So as you can see, even if it's upside down, it doesn't care. Now if we set this rotation style to the first one, left right, Scratch will round it. So now if we do negative 90, it'll flip it and make it not upside down. But do keep in mind that if you want it, I want it to go 0 and point up, it won't do it. It will try to round it, as you can see. It'll just round it. If it's greater than 0, it'll round to the right, and if it's less than 0, it'll go to the left. And then the third option for the set rotation style is don't rotate. So no matter what, it just won't rotate. So you can try to make it 60 and it won't rotate, and you do it negative 90 and it won't rotate no matter what you do. It just locks whatever direction it is in. So the final three kind of blocks, they kind of tell you what they are. So right now, I'm in the very middle. As you can see over here, it says x0 and y0. So if we click on this, it'll tell you the x position. So right now it says 0. And if we were to change it all the way over here and click that, it'll say -158. It'll just say whatever it is. Same with the y position. It is 107 right now. And then same exact with the direction. So right now we are the direction 15. But it doesn't look like we're 15 because we know 90 is right here and 15 should be on the other side. That is because of the rotation style. So if we were to set it to all around now, see, as you can see, it's pointing up now and it looks like it's actually pointing 15. So those are the last three blocks. So the very first block in the look block section is called the say hello for 2 seconds block. Now this does what it sounds like. If you click on it, it will say hello for 2 seconds. And after 2 seconds, it will disappear. So we can change this whatever I want. So if I wanted to say, hi, I am a cat, and then click on it, it'll say, hi, I'm a cat for 2 seconds. But that's hard to read in 2 seconds, so we can change this to like 4 seconds. Now if we click on it, it'll last for 4 seconds and it's easier to read. So the next block is a say hello block. Now this does pretty much the same thing as this say hello for 2 seconds. Instead of saying it for 2 seconds and going away, if you click on it, it'll stay there forever. You can change this to whatever you want. So you can say hi and then click on it, but it won't go away. So to get it away, you have to delete whatever it says in here and then click on it and it won't say anything anymore. So the next two blocks under the hello blocks are called think blocks. Now these, if you click on them, they do the same thing as saying. So this say hello does the same thing as this think for 2 seconds, because all it is, as you can see over here, it has bubbles under it, versus if you say hello, it has a kind of a almost shark fin to the cat. So that's just if you don't like this one or you want something different just to make it look like the cat's thinking. So as before, you can change this to whatever you want, and you can make this value to last wherever you want. So hi for 5 seconds. And then this think block is kind of like the say hello, and it has the bubbles on the bottom, and you can change this to whatever you want, and to get rid of it, you have to backspace it and then click it again. Okay guys, these next blocks, the costume blocks, are super important. So as you can see up here, right now we are in the code tab. Now this tab is where you can pull out code and do all the stuff that you normally do. Now if you want to change the graphics side of it, you click the costume tab. Now you can change the whatever you want. You can draw a circle here and make a little stick guy, and if you don't like it, you can just do this right here and undo it. And as you can see right here, we have separate costumes. So you can make as many costumes as you want. So I can right click and duplicate this, and I can have hundreds of costumes. And to delete them, you hit this little trash can icon in the top right. So in our code, we can switch between these costumes with the switch costume to block. So right here, switch costume to 1, and we click it, our cat changes to this one. We can name this whatever you want. So you can name this normal cat, and this one, I don't know, different cat. And then you can go in here, and now it's normal cat and different cat. So now if we click different cat, it will switch to the different cat, and normal cat will be normal cat. So you can draw whatever you want and name them, and then switch them with this code block right here. So the look block under the switch costume to one is called next costume. So you know on this one we can switch to a specific costume. Well, on this one it just cycles through. So if we click this, it'll look like it's going to the normal cat and then whatever, but it's cycling it. So if we were to duplicate this and bucket and make this purple, say, and then do next costume, as you can see, it's just cycling through every single costume. And the switch backdrop to block basically does the same thing as the costume, except over here, as you can see, there's backdrops. And if we click on this, there's the backdrop. So we can do whatever we want. So like, hello and make it like that and do whatever we want and draw graphics and all sorts of stuff there. And then to switch between them, say if you had multiple and on this one it said hi, if you wanted to switch between them, you could use the switch backdrop too, kind of like how the ones on the costume are. And you can do that through the sprites. And then the same with this one right here. You can just cycle through them instead of switching to a specific one with this one right here. And under this switch backdrop to, you can also do previous backdrop, so it goes backwards, and then random backdrop, so it just switch to a random one every time you click it. So the next two blocks are size blocks. Now this one, the change size by, you can change it and it just keeps adding. As you can see when we click on it, it'll change our cat size by 10. And we can make this like 1, so it changes just a teeny bit. You can barely notice it, or you can do like 25 and it's a big chunk. And then the one under the change size by is a set. So if we click on this, it's 100%. Now 100% is like the default size of whatever you draw. So 200% would be twice that, and 50% would be half that. And then so here you can set it to specific values like I was just doing. You can go 50 and it doesn't have to be even. You can do 78 and you can set it to just the right perfect size you want. So the next three blocks are really cool for just having a shortcut. So say we wanted to change a color but not have to make all the different costumes of the red, the pink, the blue, all the different costumes. You could just use this block, change color effect by 25. And as you can see, there's blue and red and pink and orange and all the different colors. And there's several different things. So like there's fisheye, which is a weird kind of, it makes his mouth look big. And you can also change his value. So if you want it to be 1, it'll barely change it. Or if you want it to be like 15, you can change it by a big number. And then whirl will make it kind of whirly. And you can play around with all these. They just do cool stuff. Now, as you can see right now, it's kind of really crazy looking. So if we wanted to get this back to normal, so set color effect to 0, set fisheye to 0. As you can see, there's a bunch of settings and we wouldn't want to go through all that. So to make it back to normal without having to go through all of them, we can use the next block, which is called clear graphic effect. Now this just clears everything. So now we can see if I were to duplicate these and just make a bunch of different stuff, so color, fisheye, whirl, and just do that and click it, and as you see it gets all crazy, and then I did clear graphic effects, it makes it back to normal. So these are really handy blocks that you can use to change up the look of your sprite without actually having to make a new costume. So these two blocks right here, the show and the hide, are super simple. If you click this hide, as you can see over here, our cat disappears. And if we click show, the cat will reappear. So these are really simple blocks that I use a lot. So these next two blocks, the go to front layer and go forward one layers, are a little bit more complicated, but I think I'll explain them. So the go to front layer, so see right here, we have multiple cats now. I have a normal cat, a red cat, a blue cat, and a normal cat. So say if we wanted to make this red cat, which is in the very back, go to the very front layer, I would click go to front layer. As you can see, now it's in front. Or if we didn't want that and we wanted to go back to the back, we can do back. So we can also use this go forward one layer to go forward a specific amount. So if we did one layer, it would just go in front of this orange cat and not the blue cat. And then if we did it again, it would go in front of the blue cat. We also can do backward one layer. So now it's just behind the blue cat, but it's in front of the orange cat. So those are the layering blocks. Okay, so the final three blocks are the costume number, backdrop number, and size. So these just will tell you whatever they are. So right now, we are costume number 1. As you can see in the top right, it's the first costume. And then this would be number 2, this would be number 3. So that's pretty simple. So if we click on this, it will say 1. But if we were to name, it would tell us what costume it is. So right now, we're normal cat. So if we were to switch to different cat 2, and then click on this costume name, it would say whatever costume it is. Same with this backdrop. So right now on the backdrops, we are just backdrop number 1. So So if we duplicate this and get 2, so now if we say backdrop number, it's 2. And the name is just backdrop 2. And then finally, with the size, it's the same exact thing as the other ones. This size is 100, so if we were to click on it, it's 100. And whatever we change the size to, so if I were to make this 114, and then click on the size, it will say 114. That is the final block. So the very first block is called the place sound blank until. So if we click this, nothing will happen. That's because we have no sounds. So up here we have code, costumes, and sounds. As you can see, the sounds bar is blank. So to pick one, we can click this choose a sound, and you can also record, surprise, and upload a sound. So I'm going to click choose a sound, and it'll open the Scratch library. Now I'm going to go to effects and find one that I like. Ooh, that sounds good. Okay, so now that I have this in here, and I can edit it and do whatever I want. So now I'm going to go to play sound, and as you can see, the coin's here. So if you click here, you can hear that it plays the coin sound. So the next block is called the start sound block. Now this may seem, if we click on this, like it does the same thing as this. But it doesn't, because this start sound will start it and then move on with whatever you put. So over here I have a when click, which is when the project starts, forever play the sound coin until done, which is the last block. So if we start this, you can hear it plays and then starts over and does that forever. So now if we delete this and pull in the start sound coin, you can hear that it doesn't finish. It just forever does it, and it makes a buzzing sound. So that's the difference between the start sound. So the next one is called the stop all sounds. Now this one does what it says. If we were to go to sounds and choose like a music, so loops, sure, that one, and then we were to play sound until done, it starts playing it. But if we wanted to stop that, I would click stop all sounds. And as you can see, it just cuts. So that's the stop all sounds block. After this, we have the change pitch effect by 10. So if we were to start play sound cave until done, which is the song, and then we were to do change pitch by 10, you can hear it getting higher and higher and higher. And you can also change this by a number, so like 3, and it will change it by a smaller number, or 15, and it will keep changing it by a higher number. Then we can also set this back to 100 if we click this. We can also do pan left and right, which will make it sound like it's going to the left. So if we had a sound playing at this cat, and then we did pan to the left, it would make it sound like it was going away to the left. And we can also set that to 100. But if we don't want to have to go through pitch and pan and set to back to 100, which is the original state, we can just do clear sound effects, and that'll automatically clear everything. So the last 3 blocks are change volume by blocks. So this one right here does what it sounds like. It makes the volume change by -10. So if I were to start sound cave and then do change volume by -10, you can hear it starts getting so quiet where you can't hear it. And then you can also set this back to your original. So that's the set volume and the change volume. And then this will just tell you whatever your volume is. So for me, it's 5. And if we were to set the volume to 55, it would say 55. So that's kind of like a block that you can use if you want to know what the volume is, if you can't remember. Now the very first block in the event section is called the when flag clicked block. Now this is a super important block. This is what you would put at the beginning of the loop to do whatever you want. So if I were to go to motion, which is another section, which I do have a video about, move 10 steps, that will make it when you click the flag, as you can see the cat moves to the right. So this is a very important one, and you can put anything you want under this loop. After this, we have the when blank key pressed. We can choose whatever key we want. So say I wanted it to be if the right arrow is pressed, you can put anything you want. So I'm going to do change X by 10. So now, as you can see, when we push the right arrow, it moves the cat to the left, or I'm sorry, the right. Then if I wanted to make it go to the left, say, I would do like left arrow and move negative 10x. So now if we do it, as you can see, it moves to the left. So, and it doesn't have to just be motion section. You can put anything you want under this when key pressed. Underneath the when space key pressed block, we have the when sprite clicked block. This does what it sounds like. So in Scratch, there's sprites. Sprite is like the characters. So this cat is a sprite. So when the sprite is clicked, it's saying if I click this, and we can put whatever we want. So if I wanted to say point towards mouse pointer, as you can see when we click it, it'll just point towards wherever our mouse is. You can put anything you want, just like last time. Turn 15 degrees. So now when we click on it, it will turn. You can put anything you want underneath this when sprite clicked block. So the next block is called the when backdrop switches to block. Now this does what it sounds like. If you were to say we have backdrops in here, so we have backdrop 1 and then backdrop 2 is pink. If we were to say switch this backdrop to backdrop 2, as you can see the cat moved. So if I were to do that again and then do cat 2, watch the cat. It goes to random position. That's because Scratch with this block detects when this backdrop switches to 2, you can tell it to whatever you want. So I just have it go to random position. That's why it just goes random every time. So backdrop 2, it poofs down here. So next we have the when loudness greater than block. Now this basically just detects when the loudness is greater than whatever value we put it in there. Then also we can change this to timer. Now if we go to sensing and click this timer checkbox, as you can see, when we stop the project, when we start the project, it will set the timer to 0. The timer is basically just in Scratch a timer of how long the project has been running. So this block right here, we can detect that. So when timer greater than 10, we can do whatever we want in here. So we could do like turn 15 degrees. So if I were to start this project, as you can see up here, when the timer reaches 10, the cat will turn 15 degrees, as you can see down there. So that's the when timer and the when loudness greater than 10 block. So the last 3 blocks in the event sections are super important. They're called the broadcast message blocks. Now these basically you can create a message. So if I wanted to make this, say, you can name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name this turn, then click OK. Now we have a turn. So now we can use this when clicked, it will broadcast turn. But nothing will happen. That is because we have to use this when I receive message. So now we can go into sprite 2 and say when I receive turn 15 degrees. And you can use this in anything. You can even use this in this sprite that's broadcasting it. So you can use return turn. So now we can broadcast, and as you can see, the purple cat will turn, because every time you broadcast turn, this cat will receive it and it will turn 15 degrees. So the difference between the broadcast turn and the broadcast turn and wait is actually this one will broadcast it and then move on with the loop instantaneously and then start over, and it will play over itself. This one will play it, wait for this loop to finish, the when I receive loop, and then it will do it. So that is the last 3 blocks. Alrighty, so the very first block in the control section is called the wait 1 second block. Now this does exactly what it says. It just waits 1 second before it moves on with the loop. So if I were to drag out a switch costume 2, because remember we have costumes up here, so we have costume 1 and costume 2. I do have a video about that, so I'll put the link in the description. And so now if we were to say switch costume to costume 1, and then when clicked, watch the cat. When you click the flag, it will switch costume to the first costume, and after 1 second, it will switch to the next. Now you can change this to whatever you want. So you're like 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Next we have the repeat block. So say we wanted to not forever change our costume to the next costume. You just wanted to do like 10 times, say. This would be the block to use. We can change this to whatever we want. It's like 15. That's going to be a bit too fast, so we can use this wait 1 second in there and make it like 0.1. Now if we click on this, you can see the cat switches. So that's the repeat block. So underneath the repeat block, we have the forever loop. Now this is a very important block in my opinion. It's a lot like this repeat loop, except instead of stopping after the 10th time, or whatever value you put in here, it'll never stop. It'll just continue forever. So we're gonna put a when click down here and like a next costume, kind of like we did last time. As you can see, when we start, the cat will go back and forth really quick between the costumes, but it will never stop. And it won't stop until we stop the project or start it again. So the forever loop is very important, and it pairs with the next block that I'm going to be covering. So this block is called the if statement block. This is a very important. It's the if then block. So this will check. So you can put anything in there. It'll check something. So you can go say sensing, which I will be covering in a future episode. If key space pressed, then change Y by 10. But as you can see, if we put a when clicked, it won't work. When we try to, it'll work if we hit it at the exact moment we click the flag, but we want it to be where it's always happening. So to do this, we would use the forever loop, which is why it's very important. So now, if we tap space, as you can see, the cat goes up. After the if block, we have the if then else. Now this looks all crazy and complicated, and it did to me when I first started using Scratch, but it's actually really simple. So it's a lot like this if. As you can see, the top part looks just like the if statement, but then it has this little other tail on it. So if I were to do the same thing as last time, so like if key up arrow pressed, forever, and when clicked, change Y by 10, it still works the same. You can see when we press the up arrow, it will change Y by 10. But you can also put stuff in this opposite tail. So if up arrow pressed, change Y by 10, but else, which basically means if it's not pressed, then you can put something in there. So like change Y by -10, but I'll change it to 5. So now, as you can see, if we don't press the up arrow, the cat will go down. But if we do, it'll go up, as you can see. So it's kind of like a Flappy Bird game or something like that. That's the if else block, so it's very important. So the next block is called the wait until block. So right here I have some pieces of code. So I'm going to do when clicked, wait until touching mouse pointer, and go to random position. So now what this will do is just when the project starts, it'll wait until you touch the mouse pointer, and then the cat will go to random position. And since it's not in a forever loop, it'll stop. So now we can hover over it all we want. Say we were to put it in a forever loop, as you can see, when we touch it, it'll go to random position, and we can keep touching it and just touching. So hover over, poof, poof, poof. That's almost like a fun game where you can chase it around. So you can put anything. I forgot to say that for the ifs and stuff. It doesn't just have to be sensing. You can put like operators, so like if my variable greater than 50, just all sorts of stuff. You can put whatever you want in these triangle, if it is a triangle shape. Like you can't put a circle one in there. Underneath the wait until block, we have the repeat until block, which is another very useful block in Scratch's control section. So it's similar to the forever loop, except it will stop once you do whatever you put in here. So for me, I'm going to put when clicked, repeat until mouse down, go to random position. I'm sorry, put the random position later. So what this is doing is when clicked, repeat until mouse down. So this will just repeat forever until the mouse is down, then it will move on with the loop, and you can put whatever you want. So like right here, repeat until mouse down, go to random position, and then put at the end 0. So now if we run this, as you can see, it'll go to random position until we click. Then it goes to the middle. It'll just repeat until, and you can put whatever you want. You can go like repeat until mouse down, go to 0, 0, and then when you click, go to random position. You can do costume change, like next costume. So now it'll change the costume until you click, and then it'll go to random position. So this is a very useful block, and you can also put this in a forever loop to keep repeating it once it's done. So now we have the stop all block. This is a very useful block. So say we wanted to like break a loop, so like when clicked forever go to random position, but we wanted to stop this loop when we do something. So we could do like when clicked wait until mouse down, say, and then stop other strips in Sprite. If you do stop all, this will basically just stop the whole project. If you do stop this script, it will stop only that script, so that doesn't do anything. But if you do other scripts in Sprite, it will stop every other script except for this one. So now, when we click, it will stop this loop, even though it's in a forever loop, which is supposed to run. That's called the stop other scripts in Sprite. So the last three blocks in the control section are called cloning blocks. You have the when I start as a clone, create clone, and delete this clone. So say we wanted to make a bullet. We wouldn't want to have to duplicate the sprite, make this a bullet, duplicate this a sprite, because then there'll just be too many sprites. Now the clone basically just copies the sprite, and then you can tell the clone what to do. So I'm going to make a new costume and make a quick bullet. Alright, so I made a really quick bullet, and then I'm going to name this bullet, that way it's easy for us. So now I'm going to go into this right here, the cat sprite, and say when clicked, forever, use the forever loop, if, then key, say space pressed, then create clone of bullet, then like wait 1 second. So now as you can see, when we press space, clones will be made because they're just all on top of each other. You can see they just keep cloning, and there's lots of clones of that bullet. But we want these to be like flying out and stuff, cool stuff like that. So to do this, I'm going to go to the bullet and say when I start as a clone. So this is how you direct it. But I'm going to first hide the original sprite. So this is hiding this sprite right here. So now if we run it, you can't see anything. And then if we did when I start as a clone show, as you can see when we click space, it will create a clone and it will show, but the original sprite's not shown. And then when we push the stop button, it will delete all of them. Now I'm just going to use the repeat until block, and then another touching block, which I will be covering in the future, like I said earlier. Touching edge, which is any side of the box, move 10 steps. And also do like port in direction 90. And above this, do go to sprite 1, which is the cat. So now when we play it, as you can see, the bullet will fly to the edge and then stop. But we want it to disappear when it hits it. So that's where the last clone block, delete this clone, comes in. So now, as you can see, when we press space, the bullet will be created a clone. It'll fly to the right, and then it will delete itself. And we can change this to whatever we want. We can just take this out and look at this. Now we have like a spray of bullets, and you can do all sorts of stuff. You can do like, instead of point in direction 90, you could do point towards mouse pointer now. So now look at it, it's like a spray of bullets, and it's just wherever your mouse is. You can do whatever you want. And what I like to do a lot of times is go to front. So that way when the bullet's behind it. So now look at that. It's like a gun. You can go poof, and you can have like sprays of bullets and all sorts of stuff. And you can put whatever you want in clones. I just use the bullet as an example. Alright, so the very first block in the sensing section is called the touching mouse pointer block. So basically what this does, it detects if you're touching whatever you put in here. Like right now, touching mouse pointer for this cat, this orange cat, is false. But if we were to hover over it and click at the same time, which I can't do, it would say true. Then we have edge. So right now it's false, but if we were to move this cat all the way to the edge, it would say true. And then finally we have all these sprites. So like blue cat, false, but if we were to hover over this blue cat, true. So that is the touching blocks. So the very next block is called the touching color block. Now this block does what it says. it basically just detects what colors. You can use these sliders and say whatever color you want. But to get the exact color, you can click this button right here and then choose a color. So for me, I'm going to click this green grass. So now, if you click, it'll say false. But if we were to put its foot right in the grass, it will say true. So that's a detecting color block. So under the touching color block, we have the color blank is touching blank color. Now this is another color block, as you can probably tell, and you can change this to whatever color you want. So like you could say specific parts, like white, the white right here, if false. But now if you were to move it over here, it'd say true, because right here you can see that that little piece in the tail is in there. So if I were to like turn this, so like right there, and as you can see it's not touching, it'll say false. But if we zoom in right there, as you can see the very edge is in there, it'll say true. So next we have the distance to blank block. Now basically this will say the exact pixel amount from whatever you put in here. So right now we don't have any other sprites, so the distance to mouse pointer is 247 pixels, I believe. So now if I were to create a quick loop, something like this. So this is just saying when the project starts, say the distance to the mouse pointer. As you can see, when we get closer, it gets smaller. And when we get farther away, it'll say a bigger number. So that's the exact distance. And you can also do, instead of the mouse pointer, if we had multiple sprites, so now I have another cat, you can say distance to cat. So now, you can see it's 113, but if we move it over here, it's 2, and it'll just say the distance to it. So next we have two very interesting blocks. It's the ask what's your name and wait, and then the answer blocks. So this right here will ask, this sprite will ask what is your name, and you can type whatever you want. So like you can say, do you like, I don't know, like fries, and wait. So now if we click this, do you like fries, and it'll pull up a option bar, so we can type whatever we want. So do you like fries? Yes, I do. And push enter, nothing will happen. Now if we hide or show the answer by clicking this box right here, as you can see, it shows the answer. So now if we were to click this again and say la 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 la, you can see that it says la 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 la. So this is very useful for loops like something like this. When clicked, ask do you like fries, and we can say if answer equals yes, then do something. So like next costume, repeat 10, sure. So now if we run this, as you can see, and probably actually hide this answer one, it'll ask do you like fries. If we click on this box and if we say yes, as you can see, the cat will repeat 10 and change costumes. So I'll play that again, because watch the cat. So you can see when we push enter after we say yes, it'll switch the costume. So that's the answer and ask question block. Okay, so next we have in my opinion, one of the most important blocks in Scratch. It's called the if key space pressed, or whatever key we want. So say we wanted to make this cat go to the right when we press the right arrow key. So we would do when clicked, forever, if statement, if key right arrow pressed, then change X by 10. So now if we run this, watch this. When you press the right arrow key, watch the cat. It'll move to the right. So it is very important. You can put whatever you want. You can say like if key, I don't know, like Y pressed. I don't know why you would want that, but Y pressed, and now it moves to the right if you press Y. If you press anything else, it won't do anything. So that is a very important block for making games and stuff where you can move around. Underneath the key space press block, we have 3 mouse buttons. We have the mouse down, the mouse X, and the mouse Y. Now this one will just check if the mouse is down. So right now, false. If we were to click at the same time we did click this, which we can't really do, it would say true. So to actually test this out, we'd go when clicked, forever, if mouse down, then we can say something. So like say hello, sure. So now when we click, it'll say hello. As you can see, it just checks if they're mouse. And underneath that, we have these two, mouse X and mouse Y. This is just the coordinates of the mouse and the mouse X and the mouse Y. So the X position on the screen. Moving on from the mouse blocks, we have the set mode draggable, loudness, timer, reset, and reset timer. So now the very first block, this one just does what it sounds. So normally if we were to go in full screen mode, as you can see, if we try to like drag this cat around, it won't let us. But if we were to say set mode draggable, now look it'll let us drag this cat around. And then we can also do the opposite, set mode not draggable. So now if we try to do it again, well, we can't. Then the loudness is just the loudness of the mic. Because as you can see, when I don't talk, it's only at 2, but when I raise my voice, the number gets really high. Next we have the timer, which is just from when you start the project, it'll just keep going the timer and it just keeps track of how long. Then we have the reset timer. So watch the timer when we click this reset button. It goes back to 0. Next we have the backdrop number of stage block. So as you can see here, I have a green cat and a yellow cat or orange cat. And we can switch this block right here to say cat 2, which is the green cat. So now we can detect what the X position is. So inside of the green cat sprite, if we click on it, you can see that if we go to motion and go to X position and click on it, it will say the X position. But if you go to the orange cat, it will say its X position, not the green cat's. So you can detect other things of different sprites. So I can say Y position, direction, costume number, and so on. So the last 3 blocks are the current year block, day since 2000, and the username block. Now these 2 blocks right here, the current year and the days 2000, are kind of like almost date blocks. So if we click on this, it'll say 2020 because that's the current year. And if we can change this, so we can say current month, it's 1, which is January. We can say current date, which is the 31st of January. We can say current day of the week, it's the 6th day of the week because it's Friday. We can say the hour, it's the 11th hour. We can say even the minute and the second. And we also have the day since 2000, which is just, right now it's 2020, so it'd be 20 years, but it's days, so it's 7,335. I really don't know where you would use that. And then finally, the last block, we have username. So if you click on this, it'll say your username. So mine is shift click learn. So you can detect usernames for like online games and stuff, but I really don't know how to make those type of games.